What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the FN Story. I am here with an organization owner, a innovative person in the space, and someone I've been working with recently, and I'm happy they reached out. Teddy, what's going on, man?
Hey, SPG, what's up, man? I'm super excited to be here. Going to be hard to top the podcast you released yesterday with 50, but I'm gonna let it rip and give it my best.
Hey, I don't compare them. They're all different. Everybody has their own value they bring to it, and that's why I love doing these. Is because like you have a whole different perspective than I do, than 50 does. So all that insight, super helpful, just being able to learn. But most people, I asked 50 the same thing, but most people probably don't know who you are or like what you do. So you mind giving us like a little bit about who's Teddy?
I know, no, for sure, for sure. Well, first of all, make sure everyone watch to the end. I'm going to unload all the wisdom that I possibly have on gaming, business, Fortnite, etc. But I'll go quickly into my story. So, um, I'm from Toronto. I grew up loving gaming and loving sports. Like I'm obsessed with the NBA. We've had a couple NFL chats before. Go Birds. Um, Maple Leafs hockey is obviously very big in Toronto. So I loved sports. I was obsessed with Sports Center, with ESPN. It was always my dream to like own a sports team or do something in that area. So that was like, and then I got also kind of into the sports media space, like as a total side. I love fantasy football. All that stuff is like one of the things that I've committed like an unreasonable amount of time to in my life. Then I grew up. I got a real job in management consulting, doing software stuff. But the whole time it was kind of calling to me, want to start a business, want to do something a little bit more creative, a little bit more for myself. And Fortnite came out. I got super addicted to the game, as most people did in 2017, 2018, camping in bushes, trying to rat out my first victory royale. Finally got it in. It's going to be so embarrassing. Chapter 1, Season 7. So the first victory umbrella I got was it's like the palm tree one.
Okay.
Um,
Damn, you still remember
Palm tree
that?
one. Um, Watched the World Cup. Thought it was awesome. Um, I kind of got the itch to do something in esports. I went to a conference in Las Vegas. Esports was one of the themes there. So I got an itch. Like most of the stuff that I'm doing now, I got the first, like, we're ESPN style clutch up stuff and fantasy and all that stuff. I got the itch to do then in early 2020. And then eventually I took the plunge starting in org, Moon Unit, in July 2021. And it's been a journey since then, to say the least.
All right, so you do a couple of different things. We got Moon, we got Clutch Up, and then obviously like you as a person. But I want to go back. First of all, like why start an org? I feel like there's been so many people that have tried this and it hasn't necessarily worked out. Like why for you? One, do you feel like you could do it? And two, did you take that leap?
I mean, it's an amazing question. I ask it to myself a lot. So at first, when I started an org, I wanted to start it as like side to a business, like a product that I came up with, and my friends and I worked on a product kind of completely irrelevant. And I said, well, wouldn't it be fun if we like created an esports organization to like better monetize this product and better market this product, and we can reinvest the profits into building a reach online. And then I just got kind of sick of waiting, so I said, I'll jump right in. These esports businesses, they're not great businesses. It's like opening a restaurant or something, right? Um, it's really tough to generate an ROI. But I was super passionate about it, and what I thought is one kind of model where you sign a bunch of players, grow as much as you can, make some content, hope for a sponsor, seemed a little bit antiquated. So I thought maybe I can come up with something better. We're still working on it, so I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, because we're still working on it and we haven't quite got there yet after 2 years. But two, I was super passionate about the esports space and Fortnite, especially. So I thought if I just get my foot in the scene and I start and I'm spending some money, so I feel super motivated to work hard, so it doesn't go to waste. I thought I could work. I thought I could work something out over time, which getting there. We're getting there with Moon Unit and Clutch Up. Um, but that was why I did it. And will it ultimately succeed? I think part of it is definitely going to succeed over time, but we'll see. We'll see if this kind of whole sum of the parts, Moon Unit, Clutch Up, and all the different things we're trying to accomplish with them ultimately works as a collective. But that was why I started the org. I wanted to dip my foot in. Um, I think that the other thing is competing and being in competition in these tournaments is motivating in and of itself. It's awesome, like because I do want to win some FNCS championships one day and under the Moon Unit banner, and it does make me grind, other looking for other ways to generate revenue, to find the money to pay more players or so on and so forth. So that's why, I mean, that was a bit of a jumbled answer, but really the short answer is it's pretty easy to start an org, which is kind of a bad thing from a business perspective in a lot of ways. And then too, I figured I could figure it out as I went along.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you clearly have the passion. Whenever I'm talking to you, you're always working on something else. And I think one of the things that stood out to me from what you just said is you kind of see Clutch Up and Moon Unit as like a similar, if not the same, piece of like one business unit that then has separate branches. And like Clutch Up, to me, it seems like you've already proven that concept will be successful as a YouTube channel. Like the fact that that Booga video blew up, and since then, I think everything's getting 20 plus thousand views, and over time, I would imagine they continue to accumulate because they're evergreen content. That's not going anywhere. One day, we're gonna see, let's see, Duke or Edgy retire, and then that video is going to be popping up on somebody's feed because they're now what the search is. So that piece, I'd feel more comfortable in saying, like, you keep that up, it'll continue to succeed. You'll grow. YouTube is more. There's a streamlined process. It's not an easy process, but there is like a steps, and that seems to be going in the right direction. But for Moon Unit, that's kind of, you figure out what the heck's going on whenever the heck things happen. And why do you kind of bring those two together when they could very easily be seen as separate?
No, for sure. So I think there's a few answers. So the first is it's a huge relief that Clutch Up is finally working out. I think we talked a lot in kind of the I would say darker periods during the winter where it was, I was putting hours and hours of work, and the videos aren't cheap to produce between all the different costs. So I was putting hours and hours of work, and the videos were kind of flopping. I think lots of those videos have retroactively done quite well, which is super encouraging. But I think first of all, just Clutch Up doing well is a enormous relief, and it was I think it was a really stressful, hard time having two things that weren't performing to the level that I had hoped happening simultaneously. So that's first of all, that's a huge relief. And you're completely right. Like Clutch Up can just branch off into its own thing at any time, at any point. So like I wouldn't ever see myself leaving the esports, and I mean, hopefully Fortnite is forever, but wouldn't see myself leaving the esports or Fortnite space because I have that and I have a big passion to produce those videos. But I do want to talk about Moon Unit and esports orgs for a second, and some of the perspectives that I have on them. So,
yeah, go for it.
So actually today there was a bunch of news. Esports was a trending topic on Twitter. Did you see that?
Are you talking about the VCT stuff?
Yeah, all the VCT stuff.
Yep.
The guard and Xset, and there was the thing that came out about Sentinels a couple weeks ago. So I mean, obviously these esports orgs are, I mean, especially pure competitive, are not great. But one of the reasons why.
Just if you're listening, you don't know what happened with the VCT stuff. The Guard was one of the teams in Valorant's Premier League. They, I believe, just won the last like global championship or regional. I don't follow Valorant super close.
Yeah.
they have been super successful. The guards had their own issues, but today Valorant just posted and announced the guard is no longer participating. No one's filling their space. We have no idea really what that means. They said they're just going to run the league as is, and that's what's going to be Valorant Champion Tour for NA for the foreseeable future. So that's what we're talking about. Don't mean to get off topic for you, but just to give people context.
Um, no, absolutely. So and I heard you and Monster talking about when Sentinels exited Fortnite. There was kind of this debate that you guys had, which I thought was really good on that podcast about, is Fortnite a terrible place to have an esports org? Like, is Fortnite like the worst esports to have in Oregon? So just here's my perspective. Here's my perspective on that. Obviously, I don't feel that way. I don't know a whole lot about the economics of other esports, but like the idea of spending millions of dollars, probably funded by debt, on a franchising spot, and then just hoping that the esport remains popular and being 100% at the whims of the developer and the content deals they can negotiate for, I guess, revenue sharing on the viewership seems pretty crazy. Seems pretty crazy to me. And I think we'll probably see a few of those orgs struggling over the next couple years as the space redefines. I think I do. Epic gets a lot of shit. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Epic gets a lot of shit, but they are an incredibly ambitious and highly productive developer. They're constantly releasing new content. They're constantly looking for ways, trying new things. Sometimes they fail. Sometimes they succeed. Looking for ways to keep people interested in the game. So that's one thing. Like, the baseline interest in Fortnite, I think, has remained really resilient. So that's step one. And then part two is, I actually do think this creative 2.0 and map making is a great way to make orgs sustainable over time. And that's one of the things we're pivoting into doing on Moon Unit. We've created one game already. It's done all right. It's like a gun game with just shotguns called Shotgun Game. And it's done all right. It's pretty fun. And our plan is we're just going to, every 2-3 months, we're going to have a new game coming out. We're going to have the streamers on our team play the game, promote it, viewer games, tournaments, so on and so forth. And the monetization on those maps is actually quite high. To put it into perspective, like $1 for 1,000 views on YouTube is worth 1/20th of the 1,000 players on a Fortnite creative map. To put it in other words, like, Fortnite maps pay like 15 to 20 times per 1,000 engagements or plays or whatever, compared to YouTube. So I do think that it's quite powerful. And you see, talks about that with BL. I know Dignitas launched a map a couple weeks ago. So I do see a lot of like opportunities for ROI that didn't exist before. And then you're creating a little bit of a flywheel, right? So if you're saying, okay, I can pick up some players and, their reach can like help market my game, us bringing more profit into the org, and then I can, reinvest that in new players or different things, products like we're doing the Clutch Up Fantasy or whatever. Like, there is a virtuous cycle that's possible there that we're going for. And I think the third thing is, there is a really motivational and animating principle in any organization of winning. Can we win a cash cup? It's awesome. There's always in our management Discord chat, if one of our players, they could win the cash cup, or they could qualify for, an FNCS week finals or grand finals. There's a ton of excitement around that. And it does inject energy and passion into an organization, and kind of keeps people motivated and wanting to grind and wanting to improve and make contributions. So I think those are my kind of like loose thoughts on why have an org and why Moon Unit, and why I'm still pretty enthusiastic about Moon Unit. again, there's some optionality. Obviously, Clutch Up could just spin off, and I could only do that at some point in the future. But at this point, I'm pretty committed into to winning and making this into a viable business as well.
That's cool. And I think the addition of the map making revenue share is massive for so many people. Like there is so much money to be had. Like just think of it as like the early Fortnite days of when the prize pools were absurd, where you would come in like 1,000th and get like $500. So like now you don't need to be like the top map creator in the world to make paying map creators to build a map sustainable. Plus, if you're getting your own branding on there, you're getting your marketing, having something for your players to do, like direct I guess return on the investment that you're getting, it makes a lot of sense. And it's almost like we see people, like you said, Fortnite gets a lot of shit as a developer, but we see people complaining about a lack of like revenue share for competitive or anything like that. But now we're seeing orgs shift to this model where we're going to put out maps, or even players are doing it themselves. They're putting out maps,
I
finding
saw
ways
Bucky
to
did
make
one.
money back. And I don't think that Fortnite is the best way for an org to exist, but I think it's one, the easiest to get started. Like you said, it's kind of way too easy. Anyone can really do it. You start a Twitter account, and who knows if some are
Kind
even
of player, yeah.
incorporated businesses, but then you sign a player for relatively cheap salaries. They used to be absurd, but compared to player salaries in like Valorant, League of Legends, Dota, you're paying a fraction, like a very reasonable salary for players, especially even the top players. Like some of the most expensive players aren't more than like $3,000 to $5,000 a month, which you told somebody that 2 years ago, you're getting laughed out of a room. So there's a lot of value in that, and it's cool to see that you're making the pivot as there's changes happening to be able to find ways in order to drive revenue and make Moon a more successful organization, as you know it's not purely competitive anymore.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And this happens to be coinciding with at least what I've been observing over the summer with a renewed interest in Fortnite competitive, right? Cypher PK watched Booga video, and one of the comments he made was like, I want to get back into competing. Like, this is really epic. This is really good. Clicks was just in a Courage JD video. We obviously knew Courage JD was like the first voice of Fortnite competitive. And when you go back and look at these old videos, it's like Nick A30 on the broadcast and Dr. Lupo and all these huge creators. And just the fact that they're like dipping their toe back in and getting interested, I think is super, super great. I think I heard a huge French streamer
Gotage.
co-owns an org now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's M8.
Yeah, M8. And then even this morning I was looking at Twitch, and Janice was streaming, Cami was streaming, Seti was streaming, Alabuka was streaming, all to over 1,000 viewers. So I actually think this is coinciding like pretty nicely with like a renewed interest in competitive and Fortnite in general too. So I mean, I'm like a perennial optimist about all things, but you know, I do think that there is reason. There is reason to be optimistic, even if the existing esports organization business model in general, Fortnite in particular, is like quite lacking.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, as much as I hate that ranked and pubs are pretty much the same, it creates a much easier path for players that are just playing pubs to get into ranked, and then, oh, look, tournament happening. You were just playing ranked. Why not try your hand at a solo victory cash cup, which is much more obtainable for the average player to like actually earn money than trying to get top 50 in a duo cash cup. Like that's just not happening. So it's become much easier for players to kind of take those steps. And I think big picture wise, while we know all the pros kind of hate the ranked and the solo victory cash cups, the lack of siphon, all this stuff, I feel like it has actually improved the general
Throughput.
yeah, the players are now easier to jump into competitive versus what it used to be. And I mean, I still don't like the siphon change. I hate not having siphon. I've played significantly less since they've taken it out, but I'm the small minority where I'm an uber competitive like purist when it comes to competitive Fortnite. And also, you have all these big stories, right? You have all these big creators, name players now becoming the previous generations, like Mongrels, Benjis. Mr. Savage is still here, but we have this year-long track that makes the story easy to follow, rather than like this random one-off tournament every couple of months where just like here's an FNCS, and then we're gonna, like last year, we're gonna choose to invite the top 8, but not in all cases. And then it just, it's easier for the
100%.
general fan to follow now with this format. And I mean, to Fortnite's credit, they've done an amazing job fostering this. Now it's, where do you go from here now that you've created this?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and you nailed it. Like the stories are so much more powerful, right? Like that Bucky day 2 comeback, that was, probably the second or third major storyline on NA Central, would have been totally irrelevant, if it wasn't for that Copenhagen spot being up for grabs. We've seen comebacks like that before, right? Like Hen at the Global Invitational went from 40th to 6th, something. Um, and it was kind of like a drop in the bucket of a storyline compared to a kind of epic showdown between Queasy Vino and Cami and Seti. So, I mean, yeah, they've done. And that's the other thing. Like, with Blast, it just seems like Epic is executing competitive at just a way more compelling level. And I know they had their hands tied with COVID, and Fortnite lands just have like an order of magnitude more people than other esports and all these different things. So I know they had their hands tied, but this year with kind of full clear skies, a full year to plan, I mean, they've done an amazing, amazing job.
Yeah, I hope to see more lands in the future. Less zero build lands, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So I'll just keep my mouth shut and do whatever comes my way.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it seems like the build competitive just gets so many more viewers now than the zero build competitive.
Well, because uh, zero build sucks. I hate zero build, bro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I see that as like a perfect way to have like pro-ams or charity tournaments, Twitch rivals,
Yes.
things like that. I The way it currently is, and I don't really see this changing, is what makes the battle royale work is the ability to build. We see battle royales have success, but like Call of Duty, it's a good game, but it's not a great game. Apex Legends is on the verge of great game, but they have these mechanics like character abilities that like bridge that gap of the battle royale that make it possible. So for Fortnite, we don't really have any of that character ability or anything. It's the building that
Yeah,
makes it work, in my opinion. And
100%.
I don't know. I hope we
And
don't.
anything you want to see the best possible skill on display.
Yeah.
I think the cat's out of the bag that building being in the game just drastically rises the skill ceiling, which means that when the players are competing, you're seeing the maximum possible skill in the game, which is what people want to watch. But you hit on something really interesting, and this is a stat that I sent you, which is the power of storytelling, which is like a huge core belief of mine, and it's I think definitely the thing that transformed Clutch Up. I think more to come on the Moon Unit content. I think we're starting to get a little bit more sophisticated there as well. But I sent this to you, which is Formula One. There's this Netflix show called Drive to Survive, which I'm sure lots of people have or haven't seen. But basically, what it does, it's actually what 50 was. Actually, really similar to what 50 was talking about when he has the footage of Nada and Acorn and a couple other top pros, like full lead up to FNCS, and he's going to make a big documentary about it. Like I'd urge him to. Well, one, if he just wants free advice from me, he can always hit me up, and I just want that to be super good. Like I'm invested in that being like amazing, but he should definitely watch things like Drive to Survive, because the the humanization of the drivers in the case of Formula One, the drivers and the team principals, um, and the various storylines, because there's 20 drivers, and the show basically covers 15 of the 20 drivers every season, and lots of the team principals really effectively. Um, and it's had insane results. So since Drive to Survive came out, the U.S. race viewership has doubled. So from 500,000 viewers in 2017 on average to over 1 million viewers per race in the U.S. alone.
Wow.
And F1, they're saying F1 is on track to surpass 1 billion fans. 77% of the new fans under the age of 35. The average Grand Prix attendance in the United States, well, first of all, they've added 2 in Miami and Las Vegas, but they had one in Texas all along. It's doubled in terms of the amount of attendance. So they've had to, they've had to accommodate much higher attendance. And Formula One, the holding company, the stock price is up 250% since 2016, right? And like, there's enormous interest and enormous economic value that can just come through storytelling, and that's like a core thesis, obviously, of Clutch Up. And hopefully Moon Unit. And I've seen other work. Tundra did a really good Vino video, and Reese Hub and Aussie, they're always top left on my YouTube algorithm, i.e. the first. They do a really good job at this too, and I've seen other channels since Clutch Up has started doing well that have done similar things too. That's quite effective, and like, people can really latch on to these stories. It generates enormous interest. It generates enormous incentive to watch. It generates enormous incentive to. In this past tournament, we got kind of lucky that it came down to the last game, but it didn't look like it was going to come down to the last game until the last game. Like, it was Kanata and Agers had this huge lead, and Kanata and Ager had this huge lead. So then there's all these other amazing secondary storylines, I think probably headlined by the Bucky and Okus comeback. I think without that, right, there's, people will just tune out. Oh, Kanata's winning by 200 points. Good for him. He's finally won. That's a great story, but he won 6 games too early for me to be interested. Right. So,
Yeah.
I think that's like a great tailwind that new format with Copenhagen, like you said, brings about. But too, I do think like lots of the creators in the space are working hard to do it. And Epic did a bunch of little story profiles of the players too, didn't they?
Yeah, the last batch that they just did, they had like Tayson, there was one with Fatch. They like actually showed some of the outside gaming things of the players, which I think has been lacking. Like, they were good production quality wise, but I think they lacked any kind of value as far as who is this player, why should people care. And I think the most recent batch has done a really good job of that. I think there's still room for improvement. I'm always going to believe that, but ultimately they're doing better now themselves, and there's more people like yourself, that Aussie, Reese, that are telling these stories, creating this interest. And I never thought of something like Formula One as being comparable, but it's very similar, and you always just see the car. You never see the driver, really. You're just watching the car. There's a bunch of racers. You don't really see what's going on, and it's got to be so hard to make those people seem like people and not just someone, in a car holding a steering wheel that nobody actually cares who's behind that helmet. So that is a perfect example that I think can now continue to translate through years and years of playing Fortnite and competitive.
100%, right? It's the exact same analogy, which is just some kind of random person in an online tournament behind a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, and
Right?
it's hard. It's hard to create like a person, because on the broadcast, every once in a while you'll see like a little zoom in and like the side of the screen, and there'll be a person, but no one actually, that doesn't do anything. It's cool. I think that they should continue to do that, but no one cares really. No one knows who that person is. They don't hear the comms. They don't hear what that person's saying. And we've started to get better interviews at the end of shows. The beginning of show ones are still kind of because players are like, I'm
Yeah.
not telling you anything. I'm not giving
I'm
up
not
any of
giving up my
my.
strats.
Yeah, it's like, dude,
Not
no
giving
one's
up it.
stealing your
Don't go
shots.
high ground or something. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the end of them, my two favorite were this last FNCS. We had Kanata and Agers at the end of winning a
Oh,
tournament.
legendary.
That was
Yeah.
phenomenal. And NPen the day before gave a phenomenal interview. Granted, it sucks he lost or didn't qualify, but at the it is what it is, right? Still giving good
Thrill of
interviews.
victory, the agony of defeat. Yeah.
Yeah, being a personality, being more than just a player is so important. And there's a lot of these people that are starting to get it. I feel like for the longest time, a lot of players didn't get it, but now they are.
Well, 50 like nailed that in the podcast you did with them on Nada, right? They've seen a huge growth in their profile, and because they've really embraced the content side. But I do think the broadcast does a pretty good job. Battle royales in Fortnite is particularly hard because in NBA, going into the NBA finals, you're like, oh, it's Curry versus LeBron or all these different things. In a battle royale, there's 100 players, so it's impossible to tell a story about 100 players simultaneously without it being totally diluted and impossible to follow. The game is a little bit more unpredictable, which is good in some ways, right? Peter Bot and Bilo can win, or Kanata can win for the first time, right? You have Swizzy and Putrick can win, so you have a little bit more randomness, but it makes it really hard to pre-plan the stories. That's a huge benefit I have, which I get the benefit of. I know it's happening, so I can construct an entire story based off of knowing the end result, and I can really emphasize what Kanata was doing earlier in the season, or I can really emphasize, right? If you guys knew Kanata was going to win, you would spend the entire pre-show being like, Kanata, 18 straight grand finals, never won, longest streak without ever winning one, the greatest player who's never won, maybe him or Thomas HD, right? We said it was Thomas HD on the Clutch Up channel, so I guess I should stick to the script there. But
It can be both, one in each region.
yeah, well, exactly. Best in North America. Um, so if you guys had known what was happening in advance, obviously you'd put a huge amount of emphasis on this is the great storyline with kind of, Booga lurking. He's always a big game player, right? I get the benefit of hindsight, and I get to construct the story in retrospect, which is a great benefit that I get. So I really have a lot of respect for what happens on the broadcast, because the game moves so fast, the storylines change so dynamically, and you guys are really doing a good job picking them up. And I actually think whoever's running the broadcast, like what POVs they show in the game, is like they're really on the ball compared to even Chapter 2 FNCSs and stuff like that. Like I almost always feel like I'm seeing the most relevant duo and storyline, and so yeah, I think to me, I'm pretty happy with like the state of Fortnite competitive from like at least a broadcast storyline perspective. I don't play that much. Like I'm so bad at the game, right? It took me 7 seasons to even get a solo win. So I'm so bad at the game that I don't have the complaints that I think a lot of the players do around server lag or siphon issues. So I know I completely acknowledge that like I'm totally ignorant of all that stuff, and I can kind of stick to the more positive. Look at this heroic storyline, or look at this, player who was, in this one position where people were doubting them, or they weren't living up to the hype or whatever, and then everything came together and they had this amazing tournament. And that's always the source of a great story. So I get a lot of I mostly get positivity. Obviously, hard to run an org, and it's hard to spend a lot of money on all this different stuff. But in terms of Fortnite itself, I generally only have positive interactions because I don't play the game seriously, and I'm way too bad to ever play in a tournament. I'm sure if I was lagging out, or I had a cheater landing on me every game or something, or I was getting stream sniped, I would be way more prone to negativity. But I don't experience any of that, so I'm kind of like floating on a little cloud above it all.
Fair enough. Two things you said there. One, just quickly about like the in-game observers and like that whole team. A lot of it's former players. Like Gaming Kuno is kind of him and Sokka direct what's going on in game. Both of them played at a high level, so they understand how it works. And they've created principles as to here's different stages of the game, here's the things we want to watch. So they've done a phenomenal job. Like you said, from what we saw a year ago to even like right now is better. And when they first started, it's better than before that. And it's a lot of fun to watch because when you're watching something like the 45th team fight the 33rd team in storm and zone, knowing they're both going to die anyway, who cares, right? Like, you don't need to
Yeah.
show that. There's going to be something more relevant going on than that, even if it's just a team sitting there, but they're the team in first place. That is a heck of a lot more relevant than two guys that are going to die to zone and finish bottom four.
100%.
Yeah, so that's one piece. And then as far as the positivity piece, I'm generally in the same boat. I don't play a lot. The one thing that rubs me the wrong way is when it becomes anti-competitive. And when there's cheaters, when there's things that players can't do that or can't change that just ruins their, like, those are the things that bug me.
Of
And
course.
from just like a fan perspective, I just want to see the best of the best compete. And I don't want there to be like what ifs or buts or excuses that are relevant. Players will make excuses no matter what. But from like an
Yeah.
outside perspective looking in, I don't want any of that nonsense. And it seems like
100%.
gets better at times. And then, it's last season for the Duo Cash Cups was horrendous. It seems like FNCS has been better because they have rounds to weed out problems. Um, I don't know. Anyway, let's.
The cheater seems like a low hanging fruit to fix. Like,
Yeah.
that does seem like I completely like. In some ways, the server stuff is totally out of their control, right? I think it's all on Amazon servers. So in some ways, that's totally out of their control. And all the players are playing on the same server in an FNCS. So at least there's like parity in that way. But the cheaters, the cheaters, like, that seems like a low hanging fruit that Play Epic like chooses to pursue that a little bit more vigorously and like weeding that out of the game. Is
Yeah.
that
Go ahead.
doesn't just affect clicks or
Yeah.
or big name pros, right? It affects everyone who queues into a tournament zero build or build or whatever, right? That, like, to your point around the throughput that Epic has of kind of, I went from pubs to silver and ranked, and then I made platinum, and now I'm going to play in my first cash cup, and then you die to a cheater right away, right? Like, that thanks the throughput that we talked about before. If a player is like totally demoralized because, oh, it wasn't even like that player's more mechanical than me or smarter than me or has way more experience than me, it's just that player is full on cheating. So yeah, I hope they clean that up. I mean, obviously that's like, I think that's an obvious thing to say though.
Yeah.
Like, of course there shouldn't be cheaters.
I believe someone posted, it might have been Reese, posted that they're hiring like a gaming integrity manager or some. So it does seem like they're trying to address it. Granted, those problems that they're hiring for now, you work a real life job, so you understand like 6 months is going to be when that person can really even start to make a difference. So that puts us to the first FNCS next year, which is kind of sick if they're hired today. I do want to go more towards, we wandered a little bit back to you.
Okay.
Before we run out of time.
Sure.
The clutch up stuff. What made you want to start that? I know we had this conversation, but I would love for you to share that. Like, why do you think, or why did you think this channel could be successful? And like, what drove you to create these videos?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I went to this conference in Las Vegas, CES, just like a general consumer technology conference. Esports happens to be, usually pick one or two trends, VR and AR, or AI, whatever. They usually pick a couple trends. Esports happens to be one of the trends that was that they were being discussed vigorously when I was there. So I got a lot of inspiration from that, and talking to the colleague that I went with, I said, wouldn't it be cool if there was kind of like a ESPN for esports that was like fully integrated, like a fully integrated business. It did great content, it did news, it did highlights, stories, documentaries, fantasy sports, which is something that I've been joking it's been 2 weeks away from being 2 weeks away for since last October, but I actually think it's now 2 weeks away. Like I do think lots of people will be able to play it in time for the first Duo Cash Cup. Um, so that's exciting. So that was the vision, and that's still the vision, right? We're kind of in inning one or inning two of that vision. So I started the Clutch Up channel, and it was kind of like a bit haphazard. There was some top 10 lists. There were some, you know, random streamer highlights, and we kind of just chased whatever we thought would get views. And then eventually that just wasn't working. The channel had no brand. It had no soul. It had nothing. Um, I've always been like someone who loves storytelling and writing and movies and Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey and all these different things. So I thought, why don't I just try that for storytelling? I was obviously super encouraged by the drive to survive statistics that I shared with you before. I said, I think I can do it. I know Reese does a really good job. I know Ozzy does a really good job. I think I could probably find like a little bit more niche stories. I mean, obviously, I'm saying this as the two biggest videos are about Mongrel and Booga, but I did think I could find a little bit more niche stories. I could go back to old moments. I could create evergreen content that way. And I thought, if I get the right team together, I mean, you're obviously like, the amazing voice of it all, which I think has actually been a huge game changer. If you compare the old stories we did versus the ones with your voice. But I thought we could, we could tell great stories, and if we were just super consistent, the videos take hours and hours to make. Like just finding the clips is crazy, right? So I figured sometimes just in business and in life, doing a hard thing no one else is willing to do consistently is going to yield differentiated results. So I said, let's do it. I'm going to stay consistent. I'm not going to quit. Which I wanted to quit a lot of times when I wasn't getting views and I was putting a lot of work and effort. But I said, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep trying, and eventually it'll work. And I think I learned a lot during the way. One, and I'm going to get into some tactical tips. One, we had YouTube Shorts, because YouTube Shorts are like a good hack to get subs. But all of the shorts we were doing, like, were totally unrelated to our videos. So we were getting the wrong audience. So YouTube was getting the wrong signal with our videos. And two, I actually think there is a benefit to being stuck in obscurity for a while, which is you end up getting way better at what you're doing, because the whole time you're like, it's my fault that it's not working, and there's things that I need to improve on. So if you can take maximum accountability and look to improve in storytelling and not trimming the fat out of any script, in finding the most relevant clips, and making a super compelling hook and getting better at titles and thumbnails, then like all of a sudden, when you actually have the blow up video, you had 5 or 6 videos that are actually good. They just haven't been discovered yet. And then the channel blows up all as one. It's not just like isolated. I went lucky. I went viral. I have no idea why I went viral. So that actually ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. Obviously, no one wants to, they feel like they're failing. No one wants to have the blessing in disguise. They want to have the blessing. but yeah, so that's kind of the story of Clutch Up, and then a couple like tactical things that we learned along the way. And hopefully, we can keep making great videos and like satisfying the community in that way. Like the support has been unbelievable. So it's like, I mean, it's crazy. It's like I'm like really blessed, to quote LeBron.
Yeah, and I try and send you whenever I get those compliments. I actually got one the other day because I'm the voice, but people don't understand. You do all the hard work. Like, you just send me a script and I read it. I might make it like slightly more how I would say it, but generally I'm just reading a script, sending you the audio, and that is all I do. We've had some conversations about like what I would do, but ultimately it doesn't, I don't want anyone to think that I take the credit for it, and I try and tell them like, hey, this guy's the genius behind all this. And I think it's cool that you've done this, because one of my biggest fears is this is a game that I love, and one day all the content will be gone. And we saw that with Twitch. Like one day Twitch was like, we're gonna DMCA everybody and delete all your content, and years worth of stuff just disappeared. So having these stories created and saved on a channel and now getting appreciated because they are really cool pieces of content is so much for me. I love it, not just like because I'm a part of it, but because like I'm a fan of Fortnite, and one day I go back and watch all these videos. They're pretty cool. It's like reminiscent of the time, and especially the older ones. It's fun. It's a little peek back. And for you, right? We did this. I want to say you and I probably did 5 or 6 videos together, and none of them really did that great. And then all of a sudden, like I think it was the Thomas one kind of popped off, and then the Booga
The
one
Thomas
went
one.
absolutely
Yeah.
nuclear. And Aussie watched it, Cypher watched, like everyone. And what
Yeah.
did that feel like to finally have this moment of like, I've been doing this for so long, and you guys finally now like see what I'm putting in. Like, what? Walk me through that.
I mean, it was floating. It was floating. I was floating on a cloud, right? Like I listened to this podcast, the Founders Podcast, which is really good. They kind of the guy reads biographies. He summarizes what like great founders of businesses over time went through, and he has this whole thing which like belief in yourself precedes results. That's like a constant lesson that all these people like believed in themselves before they saw results, and like that was getting really stretched. So like to have that. To have Cypher, I've literally been watching Cypher since educational commentary days, right? I'm 25-month sub on Aussie's channel, right? Like these are, these are like people in the community that I have like a lot of respect and fondness for. So, I mean, yeah, it's just like, you're just floating on a cloud. Like it's an unbelievable feeling. It's an unbelievable feeling, and it's super motivating, right? You need to be motivated by the need to improve and to do better, but you also need to be motivated by the fact that there is a possibility for like real success one day. And hopefully we're just at the start, but yeah, I mean, amazing feeling.
Awesome. Well, I know we have more coming. You just sent me another script, so that's a pretty cool one. I always like those ones. We'll tease it. Go to We Clutch Up on YouTube if you guys want to go watch some cool content. But keep doing those because I appreciate them, and they should only continue to like snowball for you, I would imagine, because
Hopefully.
they're not relevant to the time really. The way you write them, um, you could pretty much just watch one after another, and they're like, oh, this is another cool video, and you just get sucked into watching every video on your channel. Um, so yeah,
I get nerdy on it for a second.
go
Like
ahead.
on just some of the things. So there's this amazing. It's like a famous book on storytelling, right? It's George Lucas's biggest. It's George Lucas's biggest inspiration for why he wanted to do Star Wars. It's called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He's a professor from like 50s and 60s. It's called Joseph Campbell, and basically what he said is that humans respond. There's like a generic myth that humans respond to across all times, all cultures, that there's specific stories that people come back to over and over and over again, whether they're religious texts or whether they're um, you know, films or books, great works of fiction, great works of fiction across the board, even um, historical biographies. Like oftentimes the writers follow the formula of the kind of hero's journey, the monomyth. Um, so I do always try to like I do always try to work those into the video. Sometimes I do it like really bluntly. Like I think we compared Margot, Mitro, and Tayson to the Fellowship of the Ring, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo, and Princess Leia. So like sometimes we get really heavy handed, but it's like really important in stories. And anyone who wants to make videos like this on any esport or anything, like there needs to be some element of transformation, right? Like someone needs to be in one place at the beginning of the story, right? The cupboard under the stairs, stuck on Tatooine in a farm, wanting to do something with their life, in the Shire, just living kind of this blissful life. Someone needs to be somewhere, and then they need to undergo a significant transformation, to become a hero in the end. So, I mean, obviously, it's like these are Fortnite videos; it's not that important. But like, I do always try to, work work that into the videos, right? This is Edgy. He, came second 5 times in a row, and then all of a sudden he's in first. This is Booga. He's at the highest high you could possibly be as an esports athlete, as a person, frankly. And then he was good but not great, as you like so perfectly delivered in the video. And then like all of a sudden he's back on top of the world, right? So that's just super important in kind of the discipline of storytelling, and hopefully that's something that I can transfer to other things, either in this business, to Moon Unit videos, to whatever, as I kind of keep pushing in this content game.
That's cool. I like. I'm just gonna say keep doing it. The other piece is like you've clearly put in a lot of effort and thought to the channel, which makes me even more appreciative than I was before. Like, it's not just you writing these scripts based on like whatever comes to mind when you watch back in FNCS, or you remember something. Like, there's a whole overlay that you want to put on these kind of videos. And now that you say that, it does make more sense. Like, you just named 3 of the greatest storytellers of all time, and Lucas, Token, and Rowling. Like, they crushed it. They've done it multiple times and just absolutely fucking crushed it. And now, like, you're kind of taking those same ideas and principles and just bringing them to something else to continue what they've already put on paper for you.
Yeah. Well, now that I know people like them, I just want people to go to the channel and say, I'm going to get a great video. The video is going to be high quality. It's going to be engaging. It's going to tell me a story. And there's going to be little flourishes that, we always put a quote at the end, and there's these kind of little flourishes.
Why do you do that, by the way? I've never asked.
It's just an artistic flourish. I did it the first time. I thought it was funny. We made 100 Thieves video, I think was the first one. It was actually Shot's idea, Moonshot. So shout out to him to do that. And then I put a quote at the end. It was like an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote. And I thought it was funny, and everyone was asking, why did you do that? And I was like, oh, it's just a flourish. And then I decided to stick with it, because you want, I don't know, like, even if it's heavy-handed, you do want to make things unique and differentiated as much as possible in all acts of creation, whether it's a YouTube video or an app that you're building or whatever. You want to have things that make it uniquely yours, even if they're a bit cringe or you're trying hard to do them. Like, I definitely think it's really important to have just things that make you unique, just even for the sake of them making you unique, even if they're not like super crisp or super integrated. It's still I do still think it's important, and it's important to improve on that and to give people the expectation that that's coming at the end of the video, and all that great stuff.
I was just going to say that. It's like, once you've created enough fandom of people that have watched videos beginning to end, then they'll be waiting for that moment at the end of the video. And now you've like kept them here, which is kind of like a YouTube hack, I guess, of we've now created something that people expect that they'll wait for at the end of the video, even if they, I hate this part. I don't really care about this player, but
I want to see the quote at the end.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what is this little piece? There's 1 minute left, right? You got to wait until you get to the end of that.
Yeah.
One more thing, and then I do want to talk about your fantasy app, if you're willing, before we part ways.
Absolutely.
We talked about it today. Like, people have been stealing your content. How do you feel about that? And like, what goes through your brain when someone's like posting word, not even like edited, just the entire Booga video on TikTok?
I mean, I don't know. I just saw that one today. Someone took the Kanata video and broke it up into shorts. I'm like, this is fine, because it's just like, there's no way anyone's gonna watch 20 straight shorts of this whole 15-minute video. So I mean, that was a little silly. The French version of the Booga video that has 80,000 views right now or something. I think it's like the person literally wrote, "This is part of an agreement with Clutch Up." So I mean, that's a lie, and I posted that on in a comment that that's a lie. It's not in an agreement, and then the comment got deleted.
Damn.
So I'll probably have to copyright strike that one at a certain point. But um, actually had a guy reach out saying, "I want to translate all your videos into like a French Clutch Up channel," and he gave kind of a compelling offer. So at least it proves the Booga video getting 80,000 views proves that there's some demand there. So that's like actually a worthwhile expansion.
Yeah.
So to be honest, like I'm more thankful for that being like a clear evidence that, hey, we can just translate these videos and that's incremental, audience and revenue and all these great things. So like I'm generally appreciative of that, but yeah, at a certain point I'll have to crack down on the I haven't quite had the heart to do it yet on some of these other creators, but at a certain point I'll have to crack down a little bit on, you can remix it and you can react to it and you can appreciate it, and like anyone can ever react to these videos. Like I'm not going to be super precious about that, and I just want people to appreciate them. But yeah, just outright stealing them.
Just literally downloading the video and then reposting it like this is what you created is kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I'll have to crack down on it eventually. But for now, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not. At least it proves that people want to watch the videos in French, and we have 15 or 20 great videos that we can translate into French, and people can enjoy. So that's figuring out the logistics on that, but hopefully that comes soon.
Yeah, well, and then like if you find someone that does a good job editing the shorts with like just purely taking the video, maybe you bring them on to like double dip and throw
Exactly.
some shorts on. Just a
Yeah, it's like
thought.
the software companies that hire people who can hack their systems.
Yeah,
Oh, you hacked our system successfully. Like we'll just hire you as opposed to like trying to take you down.
hey, bring them in. It's easier than trying to like fight them the entire time.
I
Um,
mean, at least it shows that they have some motivation and interest in growing on YouTube and learning the ropes. I mean, again, warning to all you thieves. I will eventually have to crack down on it, but right now I'm feeling like I'm magnanimous because I'm still in the afterglow of the channel blowing up.
nice.
Yeah, it won't always be like that. Won't always be like that. So be careful. Be careful, you thieves.
So let's shift gears, right? You kind of talked about this at the beginning of you wanted Moon, you wanted to build something that was ultimately a product. And ever since I've spoken to you, there's been this background piece that you've been working on, and it's a fantasy app and like fantasy sports, but for specifically Fortnite. Can you get into that? Like, what are we looking at? What is that gonna be like?
No, absolutely. So I think the one overarching goal of Clutch Up is I do want to like get more interest in Fortnite competitive, right? And so I was kind of like just deconstructing what drives interest in the NFL or the NBA or something. And it was kind of like three things. One, it's like the storylines. We talked about that so much. I'm not gonna bring it up again. Second is kind of these like debates. Who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Who's the best person? Is kind of like first take. Everyone's mad at Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith or whatever for giving some bad take. There's like this horrible debate right now over like what does world champion mean on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen this. It's
Yeah,
like
Trey Lyles
maybe the
said
biggest
something.
waste of brain power in the history of Twitter. So there's kind of this kind of debate and people getting into it. And I think that's like pretty apparent in the Fortnite space. Hopefully, maybe there'll be like a Clutch Up first take clone that we do in the next this year or next year once we kind of get our ducks in a row. But the third area that I think undisputably drives a lot of interest in sports is, well, one, gambling. Not happening in Fortnite, right? I actually think Fortnite cease and desist any bookie who like did the World Cup, and so like Fortnite's very anti-gambling, which I totally respect, and Twitch is anti-gambling, so totally respect. But the other is fantasy, just casual fantasy with friends or whatever. So that was from the beginning, from the beginning, one of the goals that we had. And I obviously work in software, so it seemed logical that I could build the app. So we're building it. I think it's like a pretty generic fantasy game, which is every player has a kind of a fake budget, $50. Every duo has X value. Maybe Adrian and Kanata is $12, and the team that's never qualified for a grand finals is $1. Um, you construct a team of you construct with the $50 10 teams, and then the aggregate score wins. There's a global leaderboard, so you don't need to have a group of friends to play. You can just say, here's how I compare against the global leaderboard. But there's also a feature where you can create a private pool with friends or hopefully streamers. I talked to Mr. Comp Report. Um, Streamers can do pools with their fans and their viewers and I know Ozzy does one and I know the guy behind it, really awesome guy. Um, Really awesome guy. But yeah, that's the general principle. Uh, I copied the Premier League fantasy. If you ever played Premier League fantasy or anyone ever did, it's going to seem really similar to that when you try it. But I'm pretty proud of how it works. I'm pretty proud of how it works. I'll definitely send you the link. I'm more than I'll definitely send you a link, and everyone can look at it for me on Twitter if they want to try it for the next Cash Cup. Like almost certainly we'll be running a beta on it in the next Cash Cup for feedback and to generate some excitement. But I do think that it's kind of the third pillar between storytelling, kind of debate, and debate and controversy, debate and controversy, and kind of like the ancillary games, I guess you'll call them, that work really well. I mean, for the NFL in particular, but NBA and MLB and all these other sports, like have seen a tremendous surge of interest because people play these ancillary games with their friends or the public leaderboard. So that's the goal and the vision there.
Cool. Yeah, they do work. I'm in 5 NFL leagues. I have my first NFL draft tonight, and then over the next week and a half, I have 4 more. So I'm bought in. I spend like $700 to $1,000 every year on fantasy football. Um,
Yeah, me too.
it's just fun. Like it makes every game more fun to watch, even if like it's not really any money. But like you have a rooting interest. Like I'm a Jets fan. I root for my team, but I'll watch every game. Like every game that I can, I'll watch. And I kind of at certain points in my career have felt the same way with Fortnite. But having again a little buy-in would be awesome. Not it doesn't like it literally doesn't have to be money. Just I'm rooting for these players because they're on my
100%.
team. Um,
100%. No, I think it's just gonna. I think it just elevates the average viewing experience just a couple extra percentage, right? And it just gives you that extra incentive. Okay, so we have a great storyline that people are following thanks to Fortnite and Clutch Up and Reese Hub and Aussie and you and all these other great people in the space. And then, when I'm watching, I can play this little fantasy game, and I can, you know, then I actually care if like Clicks and Epic Whale are in 30th. I care if they have a big win because they're on my team, right? But normally I would only care if I'm a huge Clicks fan. I would only care if he's winning or top 3 or if he's like I guess adequately griefing his drop spots so he gets it unconned in FNCS, right? Like those are the things that people normally care about when they watch Cash Cups or FNCS weeks or so on and so forth. So yeah, hopefully we can elevate it a little bit. That's the goal.
well, and one thing that I think is also important is it's a game that could be played by anyone and doesn't rely on spending hours and hours and hours playing actual Fortnite in order to be able to even like understand what's going on. Like as someone that may just want to watch, enjoy the game, or maybe even they just have a favorite streamer that they like watching. Like this is now a way that they can play alongside without having to be a cracked 15-year-old that is full boxing and shitting on people.
Of course, and and it can be totally random, right? There's all these stories of March Madness brackets that get won by some random person in the office who picks the teams based off of colors that they like or the mascot or the team name or schools that they just know, and they win these huge money March Madness brackets because there's so much randomness. There's so much randomness. So I do think that anyone can play. Anyone can play, right? You just kind of YOLO a team in there. It takes less than 5 minutes. The user experience on the app, I think, is very streamlined. If I do say so myself. So it takes 5 minutes. You YOLO a team in there, and then all of a sudden you have like this like additional rooting interest beyond. Oh, I love Booga or whatever it is, or I just watch Ozzy to kind of like decompress at the end of a long day. There's just that one extra element that just makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit more engaging. So, I mean, hopefully we're able to launch it. Again, it's 2 weeks away from being 2 weeks away, so it's a little bit. It's been like all things in esports and entrepreneurship. It's been a little bit harder, to say the least, than I thought it would be going into it. So there's a lot of challenges in the way Fortnite data. I mean, that's maybe my biggest qualm with Epic right now is you don't know any of the duos going in, so all the data is retroactive, but you still have to give people the duos to pick from. So how do you do that? Anyways, how do you do that? That's the
Good luck.
That's the core challenge, right? That's been the kind of main source of the struggle over the last little year. But yeah, I mean, it's super easy, and hopefully it's additive.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great way to end it. I do appreciate the things that you've done and the conversation that we've gotten to have. We will keep putting out videos as long as you keep doing the awesome work that you are. Teddy, can you tell everyone where to find you? Shout out whatever the heck you want. I really don't care. If you want it to be Clutch Up, yourself, Moon, go for it.
Follow, I think, and I'll just say this rarely. Follow me on Twitter because that's like and I think my ad is going to be on the screen.
Yeah, it's right down there.
Okay. In my bio, there's the Moon Unit, there's Clutch Up, and I think the pinned tweet is the Fortnite creative game that we launched a couple months ago, which is super fun shotgun game. Definitely give it a try. Clutch Up. We have a more Clutch Up channel now that we're just getting started. I think we're going to have a great video coming out on that soon. And then, yeah, root for Moon Unit. Root for Moon Unit. We have a new player joining this week. Hopefully, we can announce him. So that's really, really exciting. And we're going to be testing out some of our new storytelling capability with this new pickup. So I'm really excited, really, really excited there. And so follow me on Twitter, and I mean, you'll be completely inundated with all things Moon Unit and Clutch Up and memes. Hopefully, a couple wisdom nuggets interspersed in there.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. It's Teddy E. Moss on Twitter, Moon Unit Gaming on Twitter, or We Clutch Up on Twitter if you're just listening. I'll have those in the description as well. But thank you for joining me, man. Thank you all for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be back with some other person that agrees to speak with me. So we'll see you next time.
Yeah, like and sub.